Hi everyone, this is Aaron for Zollotech, and I'm going to do kind of a buyer's guide for you for a Windows Phone. Now this is assuming that of course you probably want or have made a decision to get a Windows Phone or just want to know more about Windows Phone in general. So you can see I have 4 devices, 2 are on AT&T, 2 are on Verizon, and that may or may not matter. A couple of the Verizon ones come unlocked by default. You can just pop a SIM card in there, so you really could buy any one if you wanted to buy them outright or buy them used. So you can see on the left here we have a different version. This is Windows Phone 7.5 on the Lumia 900. All of the rest of these are Windows Phone 8. And the reason for that is Windows Phone 7.8, this is not going to be upgraded to Windows Phone 8, is not out yet, at least at the time of this recording. Hopefully it'll be out in a few days, but you can see it looks a little bit different, and that's because it's a little older. But the phone itself is under a year old, so I thought I'd include it, and it's also still available. So we'll talk about specs, we'll talk about the displays, the operating system. I've covered a lot in other videos, but they're all running Windows Phone 8, and these 3 have similar features. I'll also compare the cameras. So the first thing I want to compare are the specs. We'll talk about Windows Phone 7.5 on the Lumia 900. This is a Windows Phone 8X by HTC. We have the Lumia 822 by Nokia and the Lumia 920 by Nokia. So 3 Nokia phones, 1 HTC phone. And these are basically what you'll find on just about any carrier for Windows Phone 8. There are a couple others out there, but this is what we have available right now. So the Lumia 900 comes in at a pretty decent price. It's 99 cents on a 2-year contract or free. It also can be found pretty inexpensively used online, and you can buy it outright as well without a contract, depending on where you can find one anyway. So we have a 4.3-inch display here. It's a 480 by 800 pixel display with 217 pixels per inch. It's an AMOLED display, really nice in bright light. Same with the Lumia series here. It also has a decent battery in it that should get you through a day. It's got an 1830 milliamp hour battery. That's good for about 7 hours of talk time and maybe 14 to 15 days standby, if that really even matters. We have a Qualcomm Snapdragon S2 processor at 1.5 gigahertz or 1.4 gigahertz, excuse me, and an Adreno 205 GPU, along with 512 megs of RAM and 16 gigabytes of internal storage. We also have a forward-facing camera and a rear-facing camera. The forward-facing camera is 1.3 megapixels, and then we have an 8 megapixel camera on the back that will record 720p video. 1080p is only available in Windows Phone 8. So that's pretty much it as far as this goes. It is available on multiple carriers, does not have expandable memory, and you can see the phone itself is pretty nice. We'll cover that in a little bit later. Now the Windows Phone 8X that we have here is a really nice phone and comes in on the higher end. These 2 here are the higher end, and this can be had for about $99 with a 2-year contract. And it comes in really nicely equipped for that price compared to even the high-end phones out there on the market. Same with the Lumia 920. So the first thing you'll see is the display. It's a 4.3-inch 720 by 1280 pixel display, so that means it's a 720p display, as are all of these, or these 2 phones rather. And this phone has a really high pixel density, higher than that of the iPhone 5, iPhone 4, and it's 342 pixels per inch, so you're not going to see any of the pixels really at all. Text looks really nice. The battery is also fairly decent. It's an 1800 milliamp hour battery, 11.3 hours talk time, 12 days standby. It has a dual-core 1.5 gigahertz processor from Snapdragon. It's a Qualcomm Snapdragon S4. It has an Adreno 225 GPU, 1 gig of RAM, and 16 gigabytes of internal storage. It's not upgradable, and it's really nice, but you can't put any extra memory in it, just like the Lumia 900 here. We also have a forward-facing camera, 2 megapixel, and a rear-facing camera with LED flash. This is an 8 megapixel camera. You'll find an 8 megapixel camera on all of these phones, and that's pretty much it as far as those specs go. If we move over to the Lumia 822 or 822, this is also a very reasonably priced phone that runs Windows 8. Let me turn these back on here. The Lumia 822 is very reasonably priced. You can find it for about $50 with a 2-year contract, and even for as little as $1 or a penny with a 2-year contract. So basically priced the same as the Lumia 900. On this one, you'll find a 4.3-inch display, but with an 800 by 480 pixel resolution. We also have 217 pixels per inch, and it's also an AMOLED display. These are all AMOLED display phones. This phone has, again, a decent battery and a replaceable battery in this one at 1800 milliamp hours for good for about 10.5 hours of talk time, 10 days standby. In 3G mode, it gets a little bit better talk time and standby as well, but it's basically an LTE phone, as are these three here. It also has a Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 dual-core 1.5 GHz, an Adreno 225 GPU, a gig of RAM, and 16 gigs of internal storage. Unlike the other phones, though, this is expandable up to 64 gigs of additional storage that go right here under the SD card. It also has a replaceable battery that none of these others have. Again, it has a forward-facing camera, 1.2 megapixel, and a rear-facing 8 megapixel camera that records 1080p, as all three of these do. Now, unlike its counterparts, this is kind of the premier, or at least it's marketed that way, as the top-of-the-line Windows Phone 8 device. It's the Lumia 920. It has a really nice camera in it, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. But again, we have a nice display. This one's actually, I was mistaken before, it's actually an IPS LCD that's 4.5 inches. It's a 720p display, so that means 1280 by 768 pixels this time, a little higher than 720p, with 332 pixels per inch. So these two phones here have a higher pixel density than that of the iPhone 4 or iPhone 5, 4S. So really nice. They're basically Retina displays. This also has a very nice large battery in it that comes in at 2000 milliamp hours. It's supposed to be good for about 17 hours of talk time and 16.5 days or so of standby. Again, we have the Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 processor, 1.5 gigahertz dual-core, Adreno 225 GPU, a gig of RAM, and 32 gigabytes of built-in internal storage. And this one does not have the ability to be upgraded as far as that goes. We do have a forward-facing camera on the Lumia 920. It's a 1.3 megapixel camera. And while I said it had an 8 megapixel camera, it is 8 megapixels, but it's a little bit higher than that. It's an 8.7 megapixel camera with LED flash. And this camera actually is stabilized as well, so it shoots really smooth video when shaking around and things. Really, really nice camera. In fact, it's the only camera that really is kind of advertised as better than the iPhone 5s in a smartphone, or one of the PureView cameras that they've come out with before. Now, design-wise, between all these phones, one thing I didn't mention with the specs was all of these phones are required, or not really required, but Windows Phone 8 has NFC built in, wireless charging, all three of these phones, and all of the buttons on all of these phones are in the same place, basically, as far as camera buttons, things like that. So we have the Lumia 900 here, power on, sleep wake, volume, camera button if you hold it down. On the top, 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. We have a noise canceling microphone, micro USB SIM card slot. On the bottom, you can see there's a speaker. On the back, camera, flash. That's pretty much it as far as that goes. All of them have standardized buttons across the bottom. The Windows Phone 8X, oh, it turned off here. Windows Phone 8X, power button is on the top, noise canceling microphone, 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, volume button, SIM card slot, and camera button again. Charging port here on the bottom, and microphone. So this is micro USB. All three of these, or four of these rather, are micro USB. The Lumia 822 rather. I'll clip the back in here. Noise canceling microphone, 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, power sleep wake, volume, camera button, camera again. This one's not clicked in. Microphone, speaker, charge port, USB, nothing on this side. And then the Lumia 920. Same as this one. Power, sleep, wake, volume, camera button. On the bottom, microphone, speaker, micro USB. Nothing on this side. On the top, 3.5 millimeter headphone jack and SIM card slot. So pretty standard across the phones. The HTC goes away from that a little bit, but for the most part, they're pretty standardized. As far as the camera is concerned, the phones all take pretty decent pictures, although these three here, the Windows Phone 8 devices, stand out quite a bit, at least from what I could tell on the screen. So Let me switch here and we'll take a look at what the video actually looks like from them and then what the cameras look like as well. We're recording with the Lumia 920, and you can see it's the standard backyard I normally use, which is my backyard, but I normally record this in the summer when it's not quite as snowy. So you can see the animal tracks, things like that. The screen on the Lumia 920 is a little bit choppy, and this is supposed to have incredible stabilization, so if I bounce it a little bit more than usual, it seems to handle it pretty well. This is the Lumia 900, and I'm recording in 720p since this is Windows 7.5. As of now, there is no Windows Phone 8 or 7.8 for the Lumia 900. So same area, same backyard, and this one does not have quite the stabilization of the Lumia 920. Now we're recording with the Windows Phone 8X. This is from HTC, and it doesn't seem to have quite the stabilization of the Lumia 920. But we'll see once I see it on the screen itself. But if I bounce it a little bit, it just doesn't seem to handle it, at least on the screen, as nicely as the 920 does. And finally, we have the Lumia 822. You can see, at least on my screen, it seems like the focus is kind of shifting a little bit, and it's a little more jittery than the other phones were, at least from what I can see on the screen. And we are recording in 1080p as well on this phone. Now that you've seen the cameras, hopefully that helps you a little bit in your buying decision. Let's talk about using the OS overall. Across all of these devices, they pretty much feel the same. These three here have the same processors in them, so you really shouldn't have much of a different experience at all. It's really just based on specs and what the phone looks like. These all come in different colors, so you can pick. If you don't like the blues and the white and black, you do have options as far as that's concerned. But they're all pretty much the same, all customizable the same. I did feel a little bit of lag occasionally in the Lumia 900, but it is a little bit slower and not bad lag. It's faster than most phones out there just by itself. But overall, the user experience is about the same with these. I know some of them have had reboot problems, things like that, but they're kind of rapidly pushing those fixes out, or they will be soon. So they're really nice overall as far as usability goes. I think it's just one thing you're going to want to look at now is durability. And if you've seen any durability tests online, I haven't seen anything that withstands the beating that a 920 takes. I've seen someone hit it with a board. It didn't break the glass, but it broke the phone internals. It took them throwing it at concrete to break the screen. So it's a pretty heavy-duty phone, especially if you're going to have a screen protector on it, maybe in a case as well. But it is a big phone too, so you'll want to take that into account. I think overall, HTC, Nokia, and others that have tried to do Windows phones or have done Windows phones have done a pretty nice job in making good hardware that has standardized features. So it's really just kind of what hardware you want. I know a lot of people really like this HTC phone, and I really like it as well. It has a nice feel in the hand. It's nice and thin, but the camera is probably the second best of the group, I would think. And the Lumia 920 obviously is the standout, but it's noticeably bigger. You can see the top here, how much bigger the Lumia 920 is than the 8X. It's just noticeably bigger overall. And both are great phones, but the 920 and the 900, they're just super heavy, and I think that's because of the polycarbonate backings. I did get some scratches on the 900 durability-wise, but I never felt like I was going to break it. I do have a small scratch on the screen, too, that I'm not sure where it came from. Battery-wise, they all have pretty decent specs as far as the battery is concerned. I was able to get a day out of all of them, and the nice thing with the Windows Phone 8 devices is they all have wireless charging. So you can get one of those wireless charging plates, just set your phone on top of it, and it will begin charging. So if you have one at work, maybe you just set it down on top of it. You should be able to easily get through a day. I know I was able to get through a day with all of these phones and really have no issues there. For those that play a lot of games, you're going to see a lot of differences there, and it will eat your battery quite a bit. But overall, for the most part, if you leave things like Facebook turned off, as far as the messaging goes, there really isn't too much issue as far as what I've seen. When it comes to apps, we do have some advantages with the Nokia phones. They have Nokia Drive, built-in navigation, some Nokia software that allows you to see things around you using augmented reality, and some really nice applications that come with it that kind of set it apart above things like the 8X. The 8X is great, but I think those apps really make me sway towards the Nokia phones just because I like to have the navigation and things free. There are apps you can buy, though, if you don't really care about that and want to use other applications. You can get those on the App Store. As far as audio goes, when listening to music, I find they're about the same. I know the 8X has Beats audio built in, but I really don't find that it makes a difference at all. They all have good sounding audio. The volume goes loud. And in fact, when I tested this phone a long time ago, I think it has a little bit better audio than, say, an iPhone 5 or iPhone 4, really. You get a little bit better audio quality out of it, at least from what I have experienced. So overall, they're really nice. And I think no matter which one you pick, you're going to get a really decent phone that should last you well for a year or two. The standout in this kind of comparison is really the 8X and the 920. I would personally pick between these two. You're only talking $100 difference between those, and you get a lot more phone for the money, or at least as far as features go, speed, screen quality, and cameras. It's really worth that extra $100. But if you don't care about any of that, these phones are great and will serve you just as well. Overall, I think you'd be happy with any of them, but again, you're going to get different experiences a little bit based on which device you go with. Now, I'd love to hear what kind of questions you might have about this. I know this was a pretty long video, but I tried to cover as much as I could for you. If you have any questions, though, please place those in the comments below. I'll try and answer those as fast as I can. I do get a lot of questions, but I like to try and answer all of them if I can. If you haven't subscribed to this channel already, please go ahead and subscribe. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.